luck favors the prepared, as the saying goes. And conversely, of course, those who are careless should expect to fall victim to accidental injury, for example, and things like that, more often than those who are a bit more careful. That is simply a fact of life. But I don't think it's reasonable to take that simple fact of life and infer from that that those who are a bit more careless therefore then deserve any of the mishaps that happen to befall them. You cross the street several times during a day, maybe. Every time you do that, you take a risk. But we all feel that we are somehow in control of those risks. We think they are calculated risks and that the risks are minimal. And we are careful when we cross the street. We are careful every time we step into our car and we take part in traffic. And yet, every day, the statistics prove that despite this, despite the fact that the chances of you ending up in a car accident when you step into your car are quite low, it does happen all the time to lots of people. So what do? Do we point at those people and say, you knew when you stepped into that car, you knew when you crossed that road that there was a risk involved in what you were doing. So don't you come crying to me now. You invited this. You were asking for it. And now you made your bed and you should lie in it. You deserved what happened to it. Does that sound reasonable? Does that sound fair? So how come then that so many people seem to put the blinkers on when this exact same scenario plays itself out slightly differently, with different parameters, in which the person taking the calculated risk is a young, attractive woman, for example, and the agent of disaster is a sexual predator, a rapist? How come then suddenly people don't seem to understand these simple mechanisms of risk and accident anymore? That somehow they feel it's reasonable to point at a woman who happens to, for example, dress a bit provocatively and to, take herself into a dark alleyway or whatever, and say, you knew you were taking a risk. You were dressing provocatively. Don't you come crying to me. Somehow suddenly people don't seem to see that the argument is still equally callous and unreasonable as it was earlier. But there's even more to it than that. You see, normally when you put yourself in a position in which you take risk, even if you put yourself into a position where you take risks that a lot of people would consider to be unnecessarily high, thrill-seeking sort of behavior. The thing is, you put yourself at the mercy of inanimate natural forces. If you decide to do a balancing act on the top of a skyscraper and you lose your balance and you fall down to your death, you took an unnecessarily high risk and gravity punished you for it. And of course, then I can understand that some people would say, well, considering the level of risk you took and what could happen, you should bear a certain level of responsibility for what happened to you. And I can agree with that. But there is a really big difference there. Whereas in the previous example, there was lots of similarity, there is a huge difference when you take that same scenario and instead of balancing on the top of a skyscraper and gravity punishing you, you take going down a dark alleyway at night in a place where you know there could be sexual predators around, and then being raped. And that difference is very, very simple. Ultimately, gravity is an inanimate force that is not deliberately out to harm you. The decision that led to your fall off the skyscraper was your decision. The decision that led to the rape of a woman in a dark alleyway is the rapist's. He made the decision to attack that woman, and he is solely responsible. I don't know why I need to explain this, because to me, this is a no-brainer.